everyone! For today's discussion, let us tackle the procedures in how to fill up the BIR form of cooperatives, particularly for income tax. But before delving with that matter, let us first comprehend the nature of national internal revenue taxes applicable to the mentioned organization. This is entirely crucial in order to easily compute income tax due whenever applicable or to be aware if the company is qualified for such exceptions. In affiliation with this agenda, there are two classifications of cooperatives according to the extent of the tax exceptions granted. The first one is those duly recognized cooperatives which transact business with member only, so they shall be exempted, but not limited to income tax, value added tax rather, percentage tax, donors tax, excise tax, documentary stamp tax, and annual registration fee of 500 pesos. The second one are those duly registered cooperatives which transact business with both members and non-members, which are further subclassified according to the following. Cooperatives with accumulated reserves and undivided net savings of not more than 10 million are exempted from all national internal revenue taxes. So letter A, cooperative with accumulated reserves and undivided net savings of more than 10 million. And then letter B, number 1, business transactions with members. So they are also exempted from all national internal revenue taxes for which it is liable as enumerated in Section 7 of the mentioned joint rules and regulations. So the next one is business transactions with non-members. So they have to pay according to the rules and regulations. So generally, notwithstanding the foregoing, all income of cooperatives not related to the main business of the operation shall also pay the aforementioned taxes. So the next reporter will provide an example in relation to this application.
So, for example is the Kasagana Ka Cooperative, or which means Kabuhayan sa Ganap na Kasarinlan Credit and Savings Cooperative, or in short, Kasagana Ka Co-op or K-Co-op. So this cooperative is duly registered under the Cooperative Development Authority on February 2016. So it aims to help improve the quality of life of its members in urban and peri-urban communities through authentic economic and social empowerment using microfinance as a strategy for its members to gain access to collateral-free for credit for self-help activities. So now here is the statement of financial position and income statement of Kasagana Ka Cooperative. So, as supported by the notes to financial statement, on October 18, 2021, the cooperative was granted a certificate of tax exemption by the Bureau of Internal Revenue or the BIR, stating that as a cooperative transacting with members only, even though its net surplus exceeds to 10 million, it is entitled to the tax exemptions and incentives provided for under the Article 60 of Republic Act number 9520, Philippine Cooperative Code of 2008, as implemented by Section 7 of the Joint Rules and Regulations implementing Article 60, 61, and 144 of Republic Act number 9520. So the said certificate of exemption shall be valid for 5 years unless sooner revoked by the BIR for violation of any provisions of the Joint Revenue Regulations and the terms and conditions or upon withdrawal of the certificate of registration by the CDA. So, the cooperative's current tax exemption is valid until October 19, 2027. So, for the next reporter, the types of BIR form that must be filed will be expounded as well as the ways on how to fill it out.
BIR Form 1702EX is an annual income tax return for corporations, partnership, and other non-individual taxpayer exempt. So who should file this form? Well, this return shall be filed by again a corporation, partnership, and other non-individual taxpayer exempt under the tax code as amended in Section 30 and those exempted in Section 27. Also, other special laws with no other taxable income such as but not limited to foundations, cooperatives, charitable institutions, non-stock and non-profit educational institutions, general professional partnership, etc. shall also file this form. So now moving on to manual filing. Manual filing or manual tax filing is the simplest method of submitting tax returns. It only requires a taxpayer to visit the nearest BIR office to declare their taxes. They must also download a copy of their required tax return from the BIR website and report to the nearest authorized agent bank or AAB of the Revenue District Office or the ROD for submission and payment. For manual taxpayers, make it a habit of setting all income tax declarations on or before BIR's prescribed filing dates for each tax return. This is to help you avoid waiting for longer queues a day before or during the deadline. So as you can see it flashed in the screen, these are the following steps that you need to do in manual filing.
So these are the following steps of filing the EBIR form. So, under the rule number 2 in section 1 of compliance requirements for the registered cooperatives, all of the registered cooperatives shall file their tax return and pay their tax liabilities on or before the deadline as provided by the NIRC. As amended, only electronic system will be used in filing and payment of the tax of the BIR. So, for the purpose of availing the tax-based incentives, only electronically filed tax return shall be considered except when manual filing is allowed in accordance with the BIR revenue issuances. So in which case that the return manually filed, so the BIR it will be duly stamped by the BIR. So notwithstanding with manual filing, the registered cooperatives are still required to file electronically within 30 days, reckoned from the time of the availing of the electronic system. Under Section 2, Submission of Annual Tax Incentives Report, all of the registered cooperatives which were issued the Certificate of Tax Exemption and avail the tax incentives shall submit to the CDA the Annual Tax Incentives Report as mandated in Section 4, Paragraph 2 on the Republic Act 10708 and Section 2 in the Republic Act of 10963. The report shall be signed in the General Manager of the concerned cooperative and submit to the CDAB these following deadlines. So for the accounting period on the calendar year ending on the December 30, the deadline is on April 30 for the succeeding year. So for the fiscal accounting period of the fiscal year ending on January to November, the deadline is on 15 days from the filing of the income tax return.
Now, I will be going to discuss on the steps in filing up the BIR 1702EX form with the provided information of K Cooperative. So in the first line, you need to fill up if it's calendar or fiscal year. So in our case, we assume that the cooperative end within calendar year. Then we need to fill up also if it is amended return. So assuming this is our first time, so we just need to select no as well as in the short period return. You will also fill up the alphanumeric tax code, the IC011 and IC021. So moving on to the part 1, the background information of cooperative, just fill up the tax identification number or TIN of the association as well as the RDO code. So we also put the registered name of our cooperative. As you can see in the screen, the registered address, zip code, date of incorporation or organization, and also the contact number of the cooperative, then put the email address. So next is the method of deduction, the itemized and standard deduction. But in our case, since the cooperative is exempt from income tax, so it doesn't matter already. For the reason that this is only information return, so the cooperative will just have their financial statement and show their total income as well as how their funds are disbursed. So just proceed to fill up the legal basis of tax relief, the investment promotion, registered activity or program, and the effectivity of date or tax relief or exemption. So moreover, in the part 2 of the BIR form, we have the tax due, but of course there is no tax that will be paid, so we are not eligible to fill up in this part. And you just need to have the signature of the president of the or the authorized representative of K cooperative and the number of attachments. So for other information here are not already applicable, just like tax credits and etc. Furthermore, on the next page of the BIR form 1702EX, we just need only to fill up the TIN and registered name for the reason that in part 4, we don't need to compute for tax due or payments because of course, they are already exempt from income tax. So on the last page of the form, just fill up the TIN as well as the registered name and show the expenses for BIR purposes. So as what you have seen in the screen, we have listed our expenses as well as other expenses such as reserve and other optional fund, training fund, and so on.